Lionel Messi scored 3 goals against Algeria. One was disallowed before the game had barely started. The goalkeeper he beat to do it is named Luka Zidane, son of the man who lifted the World Cup for France in 1998. And Messi did all of this at 38 years old, on the 20th anniversary of his World Cup debut, while crying after the first goal. Nobody's talking about why any of that is actually insane. Here's how it actually works. First, the disallowed goal. 8 minutes in, Messi slots the ball home from close range. The stadium in Kansas City erupts. Then the flag goes up. Offside. Here's what that means if you don't already know. One of your teammates was ahead of the last defender at the moment the ball was played. It doesn't matter who scores. It doesn't matter how clean the finish looks. The goal doesn't count. It's one of football's most frustrating rules, and one of its most important. Without it, you'd simply park a striker next to the goalkeeper and pass to him all game, every single time. Offside exists to stop football from becoming that. It forces attackers to time their runs. It creates tension. It also, occasionally, robs you of a goal that felt completely real until it wasn't. There was also a conversation after the match about whether Messi should have seen a red card in those early minutes, an early foul, a moment of contact that some thought crossed a line. VAR looked, the referee decided. Messi stayed on the pitch. 9 minutes after the disallowed goal, he scored. Left foot, from distance, unstoppable. This hat-trick, 3 goals in a single match, is Messi's first ever at a World Cup. He has played in 6 World Cups. 6. He has won 1. And somehow, at 38, this is the first time he has scored 3 in a single World Cup game. Most players peak at a World Cup in their mid-20s. Messi is doing this closer to 40 than 30. Whether you think records are meaningful or not, that number lands differently when you understand how long it took to get there. 20 years of World Cups, 1 hat-trick. Now, the second goal came just after the hour mark. A composed finish, the kind that looks easy and isn't. The third arrived with 14 minutes remaining. A shot into the bottom corner, precise, deliberate, final. 3 goals. 3 completely different ways of scoring. That's not a hot streak. That's a masterclass in not doing the same thing twice. Now, Luka Zidane, the goalkeeper who conceded all 3. His father is Zinedine Zidane, the man who scored twice in the 1998 World Cup final, who won the tournament on home soil for France, who became one of the most recognized names in the history of the sport. His father also won 3 Champions League titles as a manager. The name carries weight. Luka grew up inside that weight, chose goalkeeping, built his own career, and made it to a World Cup squad. Then Lionel Messi arrived in Kansas City. That is either poetic or cruel, depending entirely on your perspective. Probably both. Now, Miroslav Klose, the detail most people skip past entirely. Klose is a German striker who played in 4 World Cups between 2002 and 2014. Quiet, efficient, lethal in the air. He scored 16 goals across those 4 tournaments, a record that stood for over a decade and that almost everyone assumed would stand forever. Messi has now matched it. 16 goals in the opening game of the tournament, with matches still to play. Klose scored his 16th in a World Cup final. Messi scored his in a group stage opener against Algeria. The record will almost certainly fall before this tournament ends. The only question is when. And the symmetry. This match happened exactly 20 years after Messi's World Cup debut, June 2006, Germany. He came on as a substitute against Serbia and Montenegro, scored, and became the youngest Argentine to score at a World Cup. He was 18. June 2026, Kansas City. 6th appearance, first hat-trick. Tears after the first goal, not because of football, he said afterwards, but because of difficult days he had been carrying privately. The symmetry is not something anyone planned. It is the kind of coincidence that makes you understand why people who don't even like football stop and look twice. Messi scored 3 goals. 1 was disallowed for offside, a rule that exists to stop football from becoming boring, and occasionally makes it heartbreaking instead. There were questions about a red card that never came. The keeper's name connected 2 generations of World Cup royalty. The record he equaled belonged to a man who spent 12 years at the top of a list that everyone thought was permanent. And the hat-trick itself, the first of his 6 World Cups, arrived 20 years after the tournament where this whole story began. Some nights in football are just a highlights package. This one was a whole story, compressed into 90 minutes, delivered by a 38-year-old who apparently hasn't read the chapter about slowing down.
The game didn't change. You did.
You're welcome. Subscribe if you like this, it really means a lot.